Yeah, welcome everyone to my first presentation in English. And yeah, I'm hoping you can learn a lot of new stuff from here. And please make sure if you have any questions, type them into the chat or just ask them directly via video chat. And yeah, please enjoy the session. So first of all, super quick introduction regarding myself. I'm Christopher Geckert. I'm a freelancer in Germany, and my topic is basically all the data platforms from Microsoft. And since a few years now, I'm only in the cloud. I'm only doing cloud projects. And recently I've noticed that a lot of customers were a bit confused why there are several different data platform products and data analytics products on the Azure platform. And they usually have a few questions. And since I've worked with all of them, I usually hope to answer them all. And yeah, so I came up with the idea to make a short presentation about it, which are the most important points of each topic and each product. So we will first have a quick live view on all three data platforms. Afterwards, we will go into the rating. And I've clustered the different ratings into several different topics. The first one will be environment, the second, the security stuff, and afterwards we look at the data integration capabilities and then data transformation. And if we come smoothly through everything, I hope I can present a little bonus at the end to you. But let's see. So first of all, let's have a look at Azure Databricks. If you want to access Azure Databricks, there is no specific link or anything you can visit. I usually prefer to go via the Azure portal and then navigate to the Databricks workspace, and then you can click Launch Workspace. It will sign you in, and it still says Azure Active Directory, not Entra ID, but I guess there will be an update soon. Azure Databricks clusters different types of workloads together. So for example, we have this general tab, we have this SQL tab, and this data engineering tab. And we will mainly focus on the general tab and the data engineering tab today, because yeah, that's the main backend work usually. On the general tab, you will notice that there is that you can access the workspace, and you can have several different places where you can save all your notebooks. By the way, Azure Databricks is notebooks only if you do some ETL stuff. In most projects, you will configure the repositories at a certain point. Since this is my personal workspace, I didn't configure any repository. And even under the workspace, it's separated under shared and users. So you can, even without the repository, have some personal development stuff and then just push it into the shared folder. In shared, you can work with folders. You can also work with folders under your own identity. And within the folders, you can create, for example, notebooks. And this is how notebooks looks like. These notebooks are used for data ingestion and data transformation. And this one here is a data ingestion notebook. So as you can see here, we are loading data from a public blob workspace. And regarding the data engineering tab here, this is basically everything with scheduling. So if you want to import data on a regular basis, you probably need to create a job, and then you will see everything regarding jobs. We will also see the data live table processing here. If you want to configure your workspace, or you have general settings on your workspace that you need to do, for example, the identity and access management, you will find this on the top right corner under admin settings. Admin settings are workspace specific settings. So, for example, if I if I grant a user here permissions on this Databricks workspace, it will only be for this Databricks workspace. If you want to manage your whole tenant, you will need to go under the manage account, and this will open also a new tab. And the settings you will create, or you will take here, are usually for the whole tenant. So, for example, if I add a user here, everyone can use the user I've added here in the workspace. So you first need to create the user here, and then you can use this users and groups and stuff like that within your workspaces. So this was the super short introduction to Databricks, and now I want to go on to Synapse. Let's check how Synapse works. To access Synapse, it's a bit easier because you always just navigate to web.azuresynapse.net, and then you will find this page where you first of all select your tenant, and afterwards you can select the subscription and then the workspace. In my subscription here, you only see one workspace. I personally missing here a resource group filter, because if you have a larger subscription with several different workspaces, it could get quite messy, this list here. Then if you click continue, you will land within the Synapse workspace, hopefully. Yeah, and Synapse also works with tabs. So the first tab you see here is the data tab, which contains basically all connections to the data. For example, if you have a lake database, you will see the connection to the lake database here. If you have, for example, a serverless SQL database, you also will see the serverless SQL database here. And if you have ever worked with Azure Data Factory, which which works kind of different regarding the navigation, if you're missing the integration datasets, you will also find the integration datasets here. So yeah. And then if you want to develop stuff, for example, if you want to make the data transformation tasks, you will see all this stuff here. So you can develop SQL scripts. Please note that these SQL scripts are no SQL project. So you can't just easily in your CI/CD process just deploy a whole SQL project. You will have to execute each one by one, or find another solution to deploy your SQL scripts. You will also find your notebooks. And for example, this is how a notebook in Synapse looks like. So this is also a data ingestion notebook. So also here, I want to show you, it's basically the same notebook copying data from a public blob storage to our own storage account. And under the integration tab, you will basically see all the pipelines, and pipelines are the orchestration tools. So if I want to execute several different notebooks in a certain order, I can just connect them like this. So on success, this notebook will now be executed. In the pipelines, you can also add something like which is called a copy data task. For example, if you just want to copy data from one place to another place, and maybe add some metadata or something, you can easily do this within a pipeline without writing some code or some extraction logic or something like that. Next one is the monitor tab, where you can see basically all executions in the last 90 days. If you wish to monitor executions longer than 90 days, you need to implement some diagnostic settings in the Synapse workspace or in the Azure portal, and then all this log stuff can be routed to a storage account, for example. And afterwards, the Manage tab, where you can basically set up all the security and user management stuff. So, for example, if you want to create a Spark pool, you can do this here. If you want to check who has access to this workspace, you can do this here. So, yeah. And then, last but not least, Fabric. Let's check out how Fabric looks like. And there it is. Fabric also has a static URL, so you can go to app.fabric.microsoft.com, and then you need to log in. And if you're logged in, then you will first see this page. And afterwards, you can here on the bottom select an experience. So I personally prefer still prefer the Power BI experience, but this is probably because I'm used to it. But all the different experiences have the same capabilities. So don't worry if you work with a data factory that you can't create Power BI reports. You can still do this. If you have selected an experience, afterwards you can select a workspace. For example, I've created this Fabric test workspace. And then you can see here all the resources that you've created. And recently they have added a new feature, which is in public preview, which is called folders, and that is super nice because now you can organize all your stuff. And if you're wondering how a notebook in Fabric looks like, I can show you also a notebook. And yeah, this is how a notebook, for example, in Fabric looks like. You can also, you also have general permissions here for the workspace, which you find under these three dots, and then it opens another window. And here you, for example, you can also create different clusters or configure your Azure connections or configure your workspace. Unfortunately, if you're using a smaller workspace, you can't work with a system assigned managed identity, but I will come back to this topic later. Okay, now everyone knows at least a bit how each environment looks like. Let's jump into the rating. So why did I choose these different topics? Usually, in my experience, I don't only do one thing in a project. So because if you want to create a full project, you usually have to you can't just look at the data ingestion part or just look at the data transformation part. To make a full project, you first need to set up your environment. Then you probably need to have a look at the security and then go on to the later task. So it's probably important to know how easy it is to create an environment. Especially if you're no super expert in the infrastructure stuff. And then you need to know if you can integrate this into your corporation infrastructure. So probably there is already a big Azure infrastructure and you just plug it into existing infrastructure. And then it's probably important that you that you need to know how many maintenance tasks and how many operation tasks are there. So these are basically, I think these are the most questions I get in the project. And this is my rating for the different platforms. So if you look at the simplicity, also how easy is it to create a platform? Databricks is not really easy to create because you have no native data lake connection. You have to manually set up secret scopes and connections to Key Vault. The networking could be super complex because Databricks gets an own VNet, and you can create route tables, you can create own DNS for this stuff, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's not super simple. For Synapse, it's a bit easier. But if you want to access internal resources or on-prem resources, you need to set up a self-hosted integration runtime, which is not nice because it's not within the setup of Synapse. And also, sometimes it could be hard to discuss with, especially if you have a larger company and several different persons working on Synapse. You have to take care of the web endpoint of Synapse because the web endpoint is tenant-wide unique. Yeah, so this could be difficult. Yeah, and for Fabric, it's super easy to set this up because you simply create a workspace and that's it. So yeah. Regarding the integration into the infrastructure, Azure Databricks works perfectly because it has his own VNet and is basically a spoke VNet. So it's super easy to integrate. For Synapse, it's a bit different because I've already earlier mentioned the self-hosted integration runtime, which is kind of not part of the Azure infrastructure because you have to host it on your on-prem environment. And also this self-hosted integration runtime could be quite complex to scale because usually you don't need that big of a machine, but if there's a new big source, you need probably a new machine, and stuff like this could be super annoying. And also the managed VNet lets you lose control over the networking traffic because Synapse doesn't have a VNet which you can maintain in the background. It's creating its own VNet, and you basically don't have any access to it. For Fabric, it's only 2 out of 5 stars because you don't have any network integration capabilities. But they've recently added the managed private endpoints. At least you can access now Azure resources. So yeah, it will probably get a better rating over the next few months. Regarding the operation and maintenance, Databricks gets only 2 out of 5 because it doesn't natively support system-assigned managed identities, so you regularly need to change password and secrets. And sometimes you get super bad error messages. And I personally think that the user management is not so handy because you have this 2-step user management. For Synapse, 3 out of 5 because also here you get bad error messages, and what's even worse, you get sometimes wrong error messages. So the error messages sometimes are pointing you onto another issue, which is actually not the issue. And you also don't have a native email support. For example, if a pipeline fails, you can't just write an email to someone to inform them that their pipeline failed. So everyone has to look up on their own. For Fabric, also 3 out of 5 because it has basically the same error messages as Synapse, and these are sometimes wrong. And you also have no system-assigned managed identity for lower tier workspaces, which could be super annoying because then here you also have the password and secret maintenance. And you have, but a really nice thing they've recently added to Fabric is that you have now an email task. So in case your pipeline fails, you can write an email, but on my tenant, when I tried it, it didn't work. So it failed to create the task and I couldn't save the pipeline anymore. So yeah, I couldn't add a star for this because it didn't work in my test. Next thing, usually someone wants to know what is happening with their data. So, and usually they need to know how does network security work on the platform? And is there even any network security? How does user management work? And what is it like? And which permissions can I grant? And what's the granularity of the permissions? And and even if everything here is possible, I also want a really nice usability of all these security related modules. So yeah, and this is my rating for it. So security wise, Databricks on the network security stuff. For a cloud environment, it gets 5 out of 5 stars because it has its own VNet and you can maintain everything within the VNet and you can control everything and even track the network traffic. For Synapse, it's 3 out of 5 because it gets managed VNet, and yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this makes you lose control over the network traffic. But within the Azure cloud, it's okay because you can at least create managed private endpoints to the other Azure resources. For Fabric, you see here the first time I have added a regular star, and they also get some transparent stars. Why is this? Because they have recently added also managed private endpoints to Azure resources. But at the time I've created this this presentation, they I couldn't test them, so I couldn't give stars for something I didn't test. So you will later see this more often because Fabric announced some nice stuff recently. Yeah, but I couldn't test them because the lifecycle of Fabric is too fast for me, at least currently. Regarding user management, in Databricks, it gets 2 out of 5 stars because no nested enter groups are working, and also the even to get to an enter replication, you have to run a separate script, and it's not super handy. So a few stars. I had to remove a few stars for this. And for Synapse and Fabrics, it's super handy because you basically have a synchronization between Enter ID and your Synapse workspace or your Fabric workspace, and yeah, you don't have to care about anything. Regarding the permission model, the Databricks is nicer because you have several different permissions, and you can grant permissions on object level and also on folders and stuff like this. Within Synapse, I had to remove a few stars because there is no object level permissions. So if someone has access to, for example, the workspace, it has access to all the notebooks and all the pipelines and stuff like this. You can't just create groups that only have access to certain folders or something like that. And for Fabric, it's a bit better because at least you can grant permissions on the different pipelines and different notebooks and so on. But the roles on the workspace level could be a bit better and a bit more granular, so you don't have to maintain all this. Regarding the usability of all this security stuff, I gave Databricks 2 out of 5 stars because you have this two-step user and management, and you don't have the native support of the entrasync and so on. And you also can't check the key vault connections and secret scopes via the GUI. Then you have to work with the API and the CMDlets. And yeah, this is super unhandy to use. Synapse. I had to remove 1 star because you can't handle the SQL permissions within the Synapse workspace. You always have to log into the database and then grant database level permissions on each database. It would be nice if they have added this to the permissions on the workspace. And for Fabric, the permission model is quite nice, but it could be better. And if you want to maintain especially large workspaces where you have to maintain the permissions of each object on its own, it could be super unhandy. So there would be groups or at least more granular permissions nice. Now let's check the data integration capabilities of each platform. So if you want to use and analyze data, you usually need to integrate it first. And usually you have this one very, very big table which needs to be imported. And 90% of the data is usually not so much. So you need to ask the question if you can save costs on the smaller tables and if you then can still handle very large data sources. Then you probably need to connect to different data sources, and you need to check out how can you connect to the different data sources. And if there are on-prem data sources, is there any way connect to them? And how does everything here work? So how's the handling of all this? So let's check the rating. I've mentioned earlier, you probably want to have very, very big tables, which are only a few tables in the most projects. The scale, so you need upscaling probably. And Databricks as well as Synapse can perfectly scale up. And regarding Fabric, in theory, it should also be able to scale up, but I've tested it recently, and actually the button which is in the documentation to make this possible is not there at least in my workspaces, and I've tried now several different workspaces and it's never there. So I don't know what I need to do to get this button to use the scaling capabilities, but yeah, I can only rate what I saw, and from my perspective, it's only 1 star if it's not capable to scale up and down. But if it can scale up, I've already seen that there are quite large clusters available, so then it probably would get the 5 stars. Regarding downscaling, again, Databricks, you can choose whatever VM you want and which is available in Azure. So you can create very, very small clusters. For Synapse, it's a bit different because on the copy data task, you can use very, very small CPUs, but on the data flow perspective, even the smallest clusters you can use in data flows has 8 vCores and is probably super overpowered for a few thousand lines. And regarding notebooks, it's a bit of the same, but here the smallest cluster has still 4 vCores. So it's still large, but at least for notebooks, you can execute multiple notebooks at the same time on the same cluster. So you don't waste that much resources, even if you have small tables, you can just share the cluster. And again, for Fabric, since it's missing this, at least from my perspective, it's currently missing this scalability option. It's only getting 1 stars as for data flows and for notebooks. But if this should work at any time that you can choose the correct cluster sizes and the SKUs you want to use for each data flow and each notebook, it will get directly 5 stars because, yeah, then it can scale up and down. Regarding the connectors, for Databricks, it's 5 out of 5. So basically, each library that is available, you can use it in Databricks. For Synapse, at least the copy data task and the data flow gets only 4 out of 5 because it has a preset of inbuilt connectors. And if you want to access a system that is not an inbuilt connector, you basically can't do this. With one exception, if you have a system that is not accessible via native connector, but it has an ODBC driver available, you can create a self-hosted integration runtime, install the ODBC driver on the self-hosted integration runtime, and then work with this ODBC driver. So I only removed 1 star for the leaking capability of this. Yeah. In Fabric, it's a bit of the same issue. You in data flows, you also have the preset of inbuilt connectors, which is, I personally think it's larger than the preset here of the of Synapse. And if you have some exotic data sources, you probably need to use notebooks. So I only removed 1 star here. Again, because the set of preset of pre-built connectors is here larger than here. Regarding on-prem access, as I mentioned earlier, since Databricks acts as if it's in your own network, it gets 5 out of 5 stars. Synapse get only 3 out of 5 stars because for copy data and data flow, it's working with the mentioned self-hosted integration runtime, but it's still kind of not part of the platform, of the analytics platform. So I removed 1 star for data flows and copy data task. And then you probably ask yourself why notebooks only got 1 star. This is basically because notebooks can't access and can't use the self-hosted integration runtimes. So if you want to create a notebook only project, make sure you don't have any data source which is internal, at least if you want to use Synapse. Or if you want to use Fabric, it's basically the same issue because the gateway software, the on-premise gateway from Fabric, can only work with the data flows of Fabric, and yeah, so here again, it's a separate software which is running on a separate machine, which is not part of the platform. So I had to remove a star for this. Regarding usability, in Databricks, it could be super annoying because you can't open several notebooks within the same browser tab. If you want to have open several notebooks at the same time, which will happen quite often if you have especially large project and you're currently into debugging something, then you always open a new browser tab, and Databricks won't notify you if you open the same notebooks twice or something like that. And this could lead to some strange issues and sometimes even leading to crashing the browser. So yeah, I had to remove several stars for sometimes even crashing the browser. Regarding Synapse, data flows, even if they kind of seemed like it, they don't support these drag and drop capabilities that the pipelines have. in Synapse, and especially if you have a larger data flow, because you need to do multiple requests on the source or something to get some information, it very fast gets super unhandy to use, and it gets super laggy to use sometimes. Regarding Fabric, I personally didn't see anything that didn't work so far, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah. So data transformation. You probably noticed the first 2 questions are basically the same questions as in the integration. So you still, even if you transform data, you still need to process large fact tables, probably. And you still need to save costs on 99% of the rest of the data, because it usually is a smaller amount of data. What is different then, if you want to do data transformation, is you probably need to do some transformation. So the question you need to ask yourself is, can I perform all the tasks I need? Because you need to do stuff with the data. And then, how complex is this all to use? So yeah, and this is my personal rating for it. Again, the upscaling for Databricks and Synapse, no issue at all. You can basically scale into infinity. Regarding Fabric here again, if you can, if Fabric actually starts to add this button, or if Microsoft starts to add this button to make this scalability settings available for everyone, they will instantly get 5 stars. But since this button is, at least at all the workspaces I had a look in, isn't available, I only can give 1 star. Downscaling, again, Databricks, no problem at all. Synapse has the same issues as in the data integration task. And Fabric, here again, if they are adding the button to make this possible, it will get more stars. Regarding the function volume, Databricks, you can code in Python, Scala, SQL, and you can basically add any library you want. So I don't see any issue if you want to do the transformations within Databricks. For Synapse, data flows have a preset of inbuilt transformations. And this preset is very limited. So if you already know that your project will have a lot of transformations, then probably don't go for data flows. If you have a small amount of data and not so many transformations, you could consider data flows, at least from my experience. For notebooks, I had to remove 1 star, and this is because in Databricks and in Synapse and also in Fabric, there is a library which manages all stuff on the clusters and gives you access to different resources. And on Databricks, this library is called dbutils. And dbutils can do a lot more stuff than the MS Spark utils from Synapse. So I unfortunately had to remove 1 star because it doesn't have the same capabilities, and it would be unfair to give them the same rating. But usually you shouldn't have any issues if you want to process your data with notebooks within Synapse. And the same here goes also again for Fabric, because here it's basically the same library. So here's also the MS Spark utils, which has less function volume than the DB utils. And data flows also have a preset of inbuilt functions, but there are so many functions in these M scripts that usually everything should work. Regarding the usability, I personally think it's annoying to open a new browser tab for each notebook, and it's probably not that nice that it's code only, especially for beginners. Yeah, it could be quite hard to use. For mapping data flows, for Synapse, the mapping data flows, I had to remove 1 star because if you have a data flow with a lot of transformation and a lot of source data and everything, the scaling, the website scaling sometimes messes up. So it jumps from one place to another and you can't find all the transformations you're looking for. And Fabric, I did remove 1 star because it didn't have folders. But since they added folders, and I noticed just now, I forgot to add also a transparent star here. Yeah, they should. It should be. It's nice to use, and I didn't notice anything that was super annoying. So if we come to the conclusion of all of this, you will probably notice that Databricks, at least for now, has won this rating. But this should also tell you that Databricks is not the best for every use case, especially if you have smaller use cases and you want to start developing fast and you want an easy setup and everything. Probably you should go for Synapse. Yeah, and I think Fabric is on its way. As you can already see, if everything should work like they announced it, and they are adding the right buttons and adding the folders and everything, they are really, really close to, and even if you get this rating, even above Databricks. So I think they are getting there. From my personal perspective, I personally would wait if you especially if you have some security relevant stuff on your company and you want to use Fabric, then I would still wait before I start with the Fabric project. But yeah, as I told you earlier, they are announcing a lot of stuff in the last few months. So now let's go to my personal opinion stuff. I've announced a best feature for each of the data platforms, and I personally really like the Delta Live tables in Databricks because it's a super easy way to get fast new data, and it's quite cheap to execute all this SQL stuff. It's not so nice to maintain, to be honest, but it gives you at least fast access to the source data. For Synapse, my personal best feature is the serverless SQL pool, because you can just use T-SQL and access your files and then do all your transformation theoretically in T-SQL, and you have super fast access and can easily check stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate the serverless pool. And for Fabric, it's definitely the cluster startup time for the notebooks, because the cluster startup time here in Fabric is about 10 seconds. And in Databricks and Synapse, it could be 1 to 10 minutes sometimes. And this is just you sitting in front of the screen and looking for a wheel that is turning round and round. So yeah, this is really nice that the cluster is starting so fast in Fabric. Then if there's a best feature, you always also have a worst feature. And I've mentioned it earlier a few times because it really bothers me that you can't open multiple notebooks at once. You always have to create a separate browser tab, and sometimes it's crashing. And yeah, I personally don't like this as much. For Synapse, I've mentioned it in the presentation where I showed you Synapse, that the SQL files are no actual SQL project. So you don't have something like a pre-deployment SQL. You don't have some way to easily maintain all your SQL resources on the different environments the same. And this is super annoying. I don't understand why this is not working in Synapse. And for Fabric, it used to be no folders, but since they are now in public preview, it's the missing capability of scaling up and down. And also, I kind of miss that you always, that these SKU logic, so you have one capacity for everything, but you probably don't need one capacity. You need several different capacity for the different resources. But I can understand why they did this, and they want to keep it easy. But for the more experienced projects, this could be annoying. So since no one interrupted me, I'm happy to ask if you have any questions regarding this. And we have about 10 minutes time, I think. So I would be happy to answer any questions. And also, I would be super happy if you contact me on LinkedIn. I saw earlier that I think Ben already posted my LinkedIn profile here in the chat. So, but in case you have your mobile at your hand, you can just scan this QR code. And also check out my website. I've recently created it. Please don't expect too much. But because I'm on my own and I'm only data guy and not website guy, but I'm trying to block a few interesting topics. And then again, please help me to get better. Since this was my first session, I really hope you could evaluate and give me some tips what I messed up. And also, I would really appreciate positive feedback. And yeah, please, to do this, please scan this QR code or check the link in our chat. Yeah, that's it from my side.